Okay.
Hey, it's Jordan. I'm delighted to be joined by Joe Messer. You are in Detroit, the Island View neighborhood. And it's really interesting because nationally, we haven't seen really what I think needs to happen, which is an organized rent strike movement. But in little pockets, there are tenants challenging landlords. And I think it's like 9 or 10 other tenants there in Island View are basically trying to work with the landlords, but they're not willing to work with you. Michigan right now has almost 23% unemployment. So it's kind of crazy that the landlords are not willing to work with you. But in this capitalist system, I'm not surprised. Can you kind of talk about what's been you and the other tenants you've organized a tenants union? What has been the response you've gotten from your landlords there?
Yeah, well, initially we did reach out individually. I was the first to reach out and be like, hey, do you have a plan for folks if we have lost our job? Because I did lose a lot of work at the very start of all of this. And basically got the response of perhaps you should apply for unemployment. And so we had already started to organize around mutual aid efforts and just having a community of support. But thus far, we've sent a letter to which we have not gotten a response to our union. We've gotten individual responses to each of our personal emails from the property manager and not the landlord. But yeah, thus far we have not had a response to our list of demands, and we're solely asking for them to recognize our union and meet with us to get 3 months of a rent freeze, and then further rent relief for those that need it, um, and then repairs and proper insulation, lead abatement, sort of things that need to happen in the properties regardless.
Mhm.
And then meeting with the greater community of Island View so that long-term residents and newcomers to the area um, can have developments that meet their needs.
And are they basically giving you too bad, we have to pay our mortgages? You signed the lease, and if you don't do it, we're going to throw you on the streets.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the letters that we've received individually have had veiled threats of eviction and have kind of played the we have our debts too, and saying that they don't have any sort of relief coming their way, but are unwilling to prove that to us. And have actually sent out a questionnaire asking us to prove that we are having like that we don't have work right now, when they're unwilling to prove to us that they aren't getting any kind of relief.
It's interesting to me because like I've reported in Flint a lot and on the water crisis, and we've seen over the years the people were poisoned, and then if they don't pay for the poisoned water, a lien could be placed on your house. So it's kind of like you're going to be victimized twice. So in this case, a little different than water, but nobody asked for coronavirus. Even if you haven't gotten it physically, you didn't cause the economy to go belly up. You're a victim, just like in a different way, people who have contracted it, yet you're being held responsible. It's just this mentality of capitalism, even if you played no role in this and it's not anybody's fault, you're still on the hook. Whereas other countries, like in Europe, government's paying payrolls, government's trying to keep people from unemployment, and they're seeing better economic results. What do you think needs to happen to get more people to do what you guys are doing, which is organizing, a union and saying no, and basically calling their bluff? Because if there's more people that unite against landlords like this, that equals leverage.
Yeah. Well, first, I completely agree. I think the last thing we need is a housing crisis at the tail end of the first wave of this health crisis, right? Like, we are not completely off the hook. with COVID-19, and a housing crisis is the last thing we need when people need to be safe and staying at home. But I think to get more people to form tenants unions and organize around like an unjust demand that we pay rent during a time when the economy is the worst we've seen it, at least in recent history, I think people just need to see that it's possible. I think seeing that we are standing up and getting more tenants behind us, and all of that, just like seeing us succeed will help people to know that they can do it too, and that they have support. The more community organizations that I've talked to, or that we've talked to as a union, that have come to support our cause, has just made me believe that it's possible, even if our tenants haven't given us a peep yet. We're hoping that they will, and the support really makes us believe that it's possible and gives us the hope to hold out a bit longer.
I'd like to ask you, because I think there's a psychology behind it, as you know, with convincing people to take a stand. In my reporting around the country, you know, people are beaten down, particularly Black people, brown people, because they've just been lied to and victimized by the government for hundreds of years in the case of Black people. And you look at Michigan, I mean, Detroit's kind of like ground zero for what I call the controlled demolition of the middle class. Detroit, Flint were like once the epicenter of like the middle class, but through a lot of different reasons, you know, trade deals, racist zoning laws, all that, it's been stripped down. Then you had Governor Snyder come in and basically just like try to privatize the whole thing in Detroit. So a lot of people are in like the main cities like Detroit, Flint, are kind of beaten down and hopeless is what I've seen talking to people. And when that seeps in, it's hard to get people to act. Have you found that in trying to get, you know, more people involved in this, that it's hard to get people to act when they're so cynical and beaten down?
Yeah, I think it's definitely that narrative where like people have tried and then they reach a wall and there's any kind of resistance, and we've tried so hard and we're just tired, and so when we meet that kind of resistance, we just like go, it's not possible. Which is why I think like the more people there are standing behind you, the more willing people are to stand up. I had to talk to people before this interview to be like, yeah, I can do this. I think it's just an important piece to know that you're not alone. But I also think there's like the working class narrative too, that our landlord has actually tried to play with people, being like, I'm a small business owner too, and I'm willing to work with people on individual bases, but I can't afford to do a large scale rent freeze. When in fact as the more and more research we do, we're finding that is not entirely true. Like Reimer alone owns about 140 properties just himself. So we're like, I think that yes, people are tired. And especially through this pandemic, like emotionally, we're tired. There's a lot to go through, even if you haven't had a lot of injustices to push up against. But I think a lot of us have, and which is why strength in numbers is all the more important. And there are people in the tenants union who can pay rent. And it's important to have those people join in the tenants union too, because they add power and strength and hope to the union, even if they are able to pay rent.
And I think there's something to be said also for, you know, not every landlord is just like a greedy jerk. I mean, a lot of landlords, have mortgages to pay, or, you know, have a lot of debts and they're not getting a break. So there might be something of like a unison in some cases between landlords and tenants. Because if enough landlords say, hell no, I'm not paying the mortgage. I mean, are the banks going to throw everybody on the streets? It's not like they have a long line of people ready to take those houses, because like the real unemployment number is closer to 25% right now, and it's only going to go up. So I don't think it's just about tenants, it's convincing I mean, listen, if like Bank of America is the landlord now, yeah, they're not exactly going to fight for what's right. But if it's just like, you know, a normal neighborhood person as a landlord, there is potential to try and get landlords to also say, no, I'm not. And, you know, we've seen like, I think, what was it? Was it a fast food restaurant said, we're not paying our mortgage this
Yeah,
month? Like,
or something. Yeah.
yeah. So like you are seeing, you know, businesses saying, sorry, we can't do it. Nothing's happening to them. But individuals say it. And it's like you said, the kind of reverse psychology and gaslighting going on.
Yeah. And I do know, like, there are friends of mine who are landlords who have worked with their tenants to say, listen, like, this is how much the payment that I owe is. Like, are you willing to work with me on? And that is beautiful. That's communication, that's community, that's working together. And at this point, our landlord isn't even willing to acknowledge our union. And he says that he's all about community and like getting the community together to work on things together. And then when we come together as a community, he's not willing to acknowledge us.
Right.
And all we want to do is get to the table with, well, the metaphorical cyber virtual table with him and them. It's Alex DeCamp and Reimer Priester to work out some sort of agreement.
And can I ask you, because nationally, you know, there's this vote blue no matter who stuff. I'm not trying to get into like the presidential election, but you know, you do have a Democratic governor. Like everybody thought like, oh, Snyder's out, hope on the way. I know the media has, you know, really elevated Gretchen Whitmer into, what do they call it? Like slay queen status with Nancy Pelosi. But I mean, she could just say, no, you know, we're doing a state rent cancellation. Mike Dugan, who we don't have 3 hours, is fairly corrupt from what I've seen in Detroit. He could do the same thing. So you do have Democratic leaders not lifting a finger for people like you and the other tenants.
Yeah, I was really surprised that Governor Whitmer didn't do more with extending the moratorium. Extending it to June 11th is fine. But it would be really wonderful if it included mortgage foreclosures as well, because then that would include landlords as well, who have mortgages that they need to pay. So like, I think that there's a lot that done to expand a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, because we all know that the economy has been hit, and it is going to remain in a place of being in suffering. The economy is suffering, and it's going to remain that way for a while. People are going to need time to recover. And if our elected officials can't see that and aren't taking action, that's another reason why organizing right now is so important, because we need to ask, we need to demand those things from them.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, what would you say to other people watching in their communities that might want to do something like you guys are doing, even though it's small right now? It's about, unless it's expanded, I think like about 10 of you, you know, holding out on rent, but they don't even know how would you even start? Like, how would you even start something like that?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, they can email us at vptenantsunion@gmail.com to get resources on how to start a tenants union. We're happy to provide our experience, and we have some printable information that we can email out to folks. But I think ultimately it starts with a conversation with your neighbors. And right now that's hard because we do have to social distance, but there are ways to do it. And we were able to make that happen even with social distancing rules in place. So know that if you're scared and you're, this is like to anyone out there watching, if you're scared and you're unable to pay rent, or you've suffered some emergency expenses or a cut in your pay, you're not alone, and your neighbors are probably thinking the same thing and feeling the same thing. And just a conversation with them could get you closer to organizing a tenants union.
Great. Thank you for taking the time. Keep in touch with me because if I know anything about the Michigan media, in my experience, trying to get more Flint stuff picked up, they're not exactly interested in workers' strikes or workers' anything. So we need to get this more attention in independent media. And if there's any developments, definitely let me know and we'll do a follow-up.
Absolutely. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.